Hi everybody, this is Karen Schaal, and today on Psycho News, we're going to talk about people-owned psychology. People-Owned Psychology is a resource and community-driven organization that I put together during my doctoral studies. This is where you create, you own your own psychology. And then we're also going to discuss my science and gratitude-based approach to happiness and well-being. In this approach, we start with science and let science inform us about what's really happening with us physiologically. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can allow science to inform us, and then we can go and utilize the tools and techniques. And we do this in my program with an authentic practice of gratitude. Science and Gratitude, expanding the mind and growing the heart. So that's our podcast for today. It's great to have you here. Let's get started.
I'm thankful I'm able to put all of my feelings into words. I'm thankful for my ideas that I receive from the universe. It's mind-blowing how things work.
So let's talk about people-owned psychology. Let's just look at the words for a minute. People-owned psychology. Well, what that tells us in those three words, that people can own their own psychology. That you have much more control over how you feel, how you behave, how you regulate your emotions and your behavior, more than you ever thought possible. And as I was doing my doctoral studies, I thought, you know something? We really own this. We own this psychology show a lot more than we think we do. Because the more research I read, I kept seeing that, oh yeah, if you go from point A to point B, you're going to get a certain result. Now, research was saying that. That told me that if I started there, I had the choice. I could go from A to B and I'd get those results. There wasn't any wiggle room. It was pretty clear. And so this happened over and over again. Now, of course, we know that research is not always, very rarely, causation. But there are indications, probabilities, where things lean towards, yeah, it seems like when I do this, these are the results I get. So over and over again, the research kept telling me, yeah, we can do this, and we can. And I began to take what I was learning in science and apply it in my own life. And I thought, this is really what we all need to know. We need to know that we're in charge much more than we ever thought possible of our destiny, of our daily life, short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, how we behave, how we respond, whether we react, gossip, judgment, comparison, kindness, compassion, fortitude. I began to realize that the whole broad spectrum of possibilities was open. And all I needed to do, and all we need to do, is to become a bit informed. Not a ton. It's not an overwhelmed situation, no way. But to become informed enough, it opens our awareness where we can begin to act intentionally. Where if we have things that cause us distress, discomfort in our lives, that we can look at that, journal about it, talk about it with a group of like-minded people, and make slow and progressive changes to what is good for us. And most of the things, I'm a positive psychologist, and that's where all of my studies, primarily my research, is founded in. Positive psychology talks about character strengths, helping people to flourish and thrive, helping individuals, groups, families, communities across the world, helping individuals to flourish and thrive by people owning their own psychology, by believing in the brilliance of who they were meant to be. Most of us come into the world with this energy and spontaneity. We haven't lost it, but it often gets covered with distractions and life. So people own psychology is here to bring resources together, like-minded people together, and to move forward, making choices towards goodness, looking at the science, becoming intentional, becoming aware, and using an authentic practice of gratitude to move forward towards our goals. So that's people-owned psychology, is founded on positive psychology. And really what's important here is that it's grounded in science. It's pretty much about 20 years since we've had all of this wonderful science come out. The field of positive psychology really came into being in the turn of the 21st century, about the same time when we began to look inside the brain and understand how emotions went through blood, where blood flows, emotions flow. They were able to see the emotions course through the brain and see what parts of the brain were affected by different hormones. So things changed tremendously, and we began to understand for the first time in the history of psychology, in the history of the world, precisely how emotions work. And so that's why I have a science and a gratitude-based approach to happiness and well-being. Because we begin with the science. We find out what science is telling us about exercise, about diet, sleep. There's so much out there. And then we take the information, and again, we're making these choices. Maybe you want to drink a certain type of tea at bedtime. Maybe I want to do some breathing exercises. There is so much available addressing the same area. For instance, getting sleep. We know a lot of things that we can do. We know that the choices that we make, if we make different ones, we may be able to sleep a lot better. Sleep is so important. So that's what this is all about. And then, of course, once we've gathered that and we go out into the world to practice using the tools and techniques that we've found out, coming out of science, coming out of positive psychology, we do that with an authentic practice of gratitude. On a very simple level, this is making choices towards goodness over and over again. Choices that are good for ourselves, are good for our families, are good for our communities, for the world at large. It's a little bit of an intuitive type of practice, but the research on gratitude is overwhelming that gratitude modifies behavior. And I personally experienced it myself, and I mean, nobody would think this, but gratitude, this is my opinion from what research says and also my own personal experience, that gratitude is the most powerful transformational tool we have for positive and lasting change. It's remarkable. So that's pretty much how the people-owned psychology, this is where we come together in groups, online, and communities as well. We haven't started doing that, but I can't wait to start doing that. And then we have resources. We kind of milling the landscape of research. So we have this group, this people-owned psychology, because really what it is a smorgasbord of psychology. Now, granted, my leaning is towards positive psychology and definitely towards an authentic practice of gratitude, a life orientation towards appreciation, kindness, fortitude, and strength, all that. That's my leaning. So that's, if you feel If you understand that, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, just give it a little bit. Give me time to show you how transformative the positive emotion of gratitude actually is. So now, let's talk about my science and gratitude-based approach to happiness and well-being. And this is really a great love of mine because if you notice, the second word in all of this is gratitude. One of the most remarkable things I learned early in my experimentation with gratitude, and I know this is going to sound silly, but I could not be grumpy and grateful at the same time. And my habit was leaning towards the complaining, negative, the normal kind of, walking through the day, seeing things that aren't right, not being happy with what you got. I was happy enough, but you know what I mean, that kind of sizzling, that little fire of discontent. But if I wanted to practice authentic gratitude, no messing around, not picking up the journal, writing, and then just being cranky, but authentic gratitude, then I had to make a choice. I could not be grumpy and grateful at the same time. I couldn't gossip and be authentically grateful. I couldn't judge, couldn't compare. And so in the beginning, it was like, I really kind of don't know how to navigate, because I didn't have any neural kind of pathways, information pathways in my brain that had carried these different kinds of messages like compassion and kindness, and responding instead of reacting, and being disciplined and caring for oneself in a productive and non-egotistic way, right? So that was a big one. Authentic gratitude actually calls you, if you're going to do it the right way, and that's the only way to do it, is to do it authentically. You can't kid the system on this one. I've been a person who actually has tried to, cheat the system as, in school and all of that. But you can't cheat the system on gratitude. If you want the big results, if you want the fireworks, if you want the joy, if you want the happiness, if you want all that, you can't cheat the system. You have to practice authentic gratitude, making choices towards goodness over and over again, as much as you can. And what happens is when you do that, you begin to create new neural pathways in your brain, new habits. I can't even be as cranky as I used to be, because I have new pathways that I've been working on for close to a decade, not that long, but a while. And this new pathway is based on a life orientation of looking for things to appreciate, looking for the goodness in people, making choices to what I believe is goodness, making good choices. And what happens when you do that, you create new informational highways in your brain, neural pathways. Makes sense, right? Brain pathways. And when you do this with authentic gratitude, just like the scientists say, it transforms, it modifies. So you have new pathways that are based on responding rather than reacting, on kindness, on compassion, on perseverance, appreciation. That's how it works. But anyway, that just totally blew me away, because most people think of gratitude as some sappy thing, but it's a very, very powerful tool. It's a coping strategy. It's powerful, but it has to be authentic. You can't cheat the system, not with gratitude. Nope, can't do it. But boy, when you're consistent and when you really have a desire, it's not perfect by any means. But when you become aware and your intention is to appreciate, is to look for the goodness in people, look for the goodness in things, look for good opportunities, where you stop negative forecasting, stop complaining, stop comparing, stop judging and hating, and look for other ways to express ourselves. Then the end result is pretty good. Let me tell you a final story and then I'll sign off. 2 or 3 years into my practice, into my experimentation with gratitude, I was doing fine, but I wasn't getting the big fireworks response that I had expected, that the research was telling me. But things were all right, things were good. And then I came across an article. Alex Wood, he's out of England, 2010. And what he said totally changed my practice of gratitude and changed my life. And what he said, this is a meta-analysis where he took a whole bunch of different kinds of research and then did an analysis of all of them together, what they said, what their voices were saying to him. And he said overwhelmingly that it really appeared that people who had a life orientation towards gratitude, where they're not picking things up, a gratitude journal, and then going off and being nasty, where they're authentically living a life of authentic gratitude. Those people who have a life orientation towards appreciation and gratitude, he said those people experience joy and happiness easily and frequently. And I read that and I thought, okay, I want some of that, right? And so I began to then eat, sleep, and drink gratitude as much as I can. I am such, in all love for myself, I am sometimes a huge mess up. Just, I'm sure we all think that way about ourselves sometimes, with all due love. But hey, it worked. It definitely worked. And I continue with this relationship, this experimentation with gratitude, and I continue to learn. So that's pretty much how all of this evolved. Very kind of organically, where I realized that we were pretty much in charge of how our lives are going to be. And that people in psychology came out of that. I realized the importance of science in our personal development, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then, of course, finding out about gratitude, experiencing what gratitude can do, was a joy and a great gift to be able to share that with people about having a life orientation towards gratitude and appreciation, making those choices towards goodness as much as we possibly can. So that's how it all weaved together, and that's really what my work is all about. Bringing the resources, gathering together as like-minded individuals, using the science, practicing the gratitude, and becoming the brilliance of who we were meant to be. Until next time, let's be the very best we can be. Let's be grateful.
That's why I'm writing this letter. See, gratitude's a high frequency and thus it'll make us feel better. I'm